Moriden Athluan.
The story of his near single-handed assault on Windhelm and his execution of the traitor Ulrich Stormcloak of Windhelm are staples of the Imperial Legion. His devotion to duty, his zeal in combat, his dedication to the safety of the Empire and its citizens are told to all new recruits of the Legion.
Though his actions in the Civil War were what drew the eyes of all Tamriel to him, it is not what he is best known for. No, for it was after his days in the Legion that he began to show his true dedication to both the gods and the people of the Empire.
Come now and hear the tale of the Moriden Athluan's glorious mercenary days, and the great good that he did for all the people of Skyrim.
The bards can
worked
always
the
be
gods'
trusted
names.
to take a story and turn it to their own ends. There are elements of truth to their story. The truth, though, the truth is not what the bards would have you believe. Five Frostfall, 4th Era, 201. The exterior of the redoubt was still littered with the bodies of the Forsworn that we'd had to deal with in the aftermath of the dragon attack, and I had hopes that, since the bodies were still here, there would be few, if any, in the interior to contend with. Though I was wrong, and there were many more inside, hiding, none of them were hard to deal with. Most of them never realized I was there. Lydia was thoughtful after watching me perform an entire assault on an enemy-held site without ever having to engage one in close combat. I wasn't sure if she was compiling notes for a scathing review afterwards, or if she was thinking about taking up the bow herself. We reached the top of the ruin with no sign of Fiotra, but there was still one last place to look. The one singular lone male of this entire group of Forsworn was in that last room, as was Fiotra, and a massive attempt at a shrine to Dibella as well. Once I'd spoken with Fiotra, everything fell into place for me. First, she'd been kidnapped, because somehow the leader of this group had figured out that Fiotra was going to be the next Dibellan Sybil. They had told the girl she was touched by the gods, but from her own words, she'd never believed it, or even suspected it, before she was told. 2. This group, for whatever reason, had apparently taken to Dibella worship, instead of whatever god they had worshipped before, kidnapped Fiotra, and seemed to think that by controlling her, they could control the blessings of a divine. This, to me, seems like an idea doomed to failure from moment one, but who can say how a Forsworn thinks? Third, as a result of Fiotra's words, I think it far more likely that the Dibellans had been scouting for a new Sybil, knew that an appropriate young woman was in Carthwayston, had selected her to fill the position, and that the Forsworn found out about it. I saw part of their sacred rite, and there was nothing to indicate to me that there was any divine presence. To me, this all looks and sounds exactly like a standard plot for power acquisition and usage, one that the victim, Fiotra, even believes in and willingly participates in. Me? I don't buy it. Especially since it seems to be a girls-only club. We're getting this girl back to Markarth tonight. I'm not sleeping until I get rid of her and can get back to the more important business of getting rid of the Silverbloods back in Markarth. I'm pretty certain that this is where it is all going to end up going. The travel time seemed far longer than it needed to be. Between being tired and having to fend off incessant questions from the girl, I was about as irritable as I've been since I left Windhelm the first time. Finally, though, we reached the city, and though I tried to keep my return a low-key affair, I couldn't help but notice that there were eyes watching me from the upper tiers of the city, racing footsteps echoing off of the hard rock walls as they ran to inform their masters that I was back. For the moment, I didn't care. They could report me going back to Dibella's temple all they wanted. I was done playing at this charade of theirs. The only thing the priestesses were serving, I was now certain, was themselves and their perceived positions of power. The High Priestess was shocked when I returned, as though she didn't think I ever would. I take this as further proof. Would not her goddess have told her that I would survive and succeed if it were the goddess's will that I was fulfilling? It's all nonsense. All completely made up, and used to control the people around them. I'll give them credit that they found a way to do it without a weapon, but other than that, how can anyone expect to swallow this? Even her request to their new Sybil reeked of this deception. How would a mortal prepare another mortal for the direct touch of deity? I was told that I had earned Dibella's blessing, whatever that is supposed to mean. In short, it was, "Thank you, goodbye, please pray on your way out." I did stop at their altar on the way out, but only out of courtesy. If this is supposed to be a direct application of a god's will unknown, then I have to wonder how much of the wine they've been drinking to convince themselves, because I saw nothing that reeked of divine intervention. So of the two temples I've helped, one is engaged in a massive deception, and the other would have had me try to make something holy with an unholy thing. Not looking good for the priests of this world. Indeed, I wonder how anyone can possibly find any kind of direction, purpose, or meaning from these paper-thin power plays they've engaged in. I rather doubt it, but perhaps Mara will be better. I'll have to go through Riften at some point in the near future, and while I expect to be disappointed there as well, I cannot ignore the possibility that perhaps, maybe, they have it right. For now, though, it is a quick rest, and then back to this whole forsworn Silverblood cloak and dagger affair. A brief nap later, I went to the Treasure House, the home of the Silverbloods in Markarth. I don't even know what to call her, but the pretty little thing they had manning a desk to keep people out was not very bright. She told me that Thonar wasn't seeing visitors, and all I did was say I was expected, and she let me straight in. Not that Thonar wanted to see me, of course. He was in the middle of shouting at me for snooping in his business, which, it should be noted, I'd have had no way of knowing until he told me, until he sent the guard to try and intimidate me, when we were interrupted. There was a series of shouts from the front room, most of them either pain or the forsworn rally cry. Thonar's wife was the first to be killed, and though the fighting was short, the casualty numbers were high. Thonar was angry enough that he told me everything. I wasn't wrong when I said there was something big going on here, and it dates back to Ulfric Stormcloak's suppression of the Forsworn in Markarth. The Forsworn king, Madanak, was supposed to have been executed, but it turns out that Thonar saved him, put him in the mine, and let him run the rebellion from there, in return for the Forsworn taking care of Thonar's irritations. Now he acts surprised when his supposedly tame saber cat turns on him. Madanak must be ready for something to start biting at Thonar. I offered to take care of Madanak for him, but he instead decided that I was a part of his problems, and said he would have me thrown in the mines. Anyone else, and that might be an idle threat. The clock is ticking, then. And apart from talking to Nepos, who almost has to be working for Madanak, I don't see any way out yet. The meeting with Nepos was informative, but only in the sense that it confirmed what I had already been told or had surmised. He does in fact work for Madanak. This whole state of affairs was only made possible because of Ulfric during the Great War, and, of course, he wasn't going to let me leave the room alive. As is likely obvious, that last part didn't work out exactly as he'd planned. I have a very good picture of what's been happening in Markarth, more than enough for Eltries to work from. I'm sending a few things back to the museum, but once that's done, I need to find the young man and fill him in, and then both of us can get out of this city as quickly as possible. It won't take them all long to figure out why I got involved in the first place, and for me, I have no desire to find out what silver mining is like on a long-term basis. I should have seen this coming. Should have seen the obvious solution to the problem Thonar has. Instead, I walked straight into it. I went back to the Talos Shrine to warn Eltries, and found him dead. The Markarth Guard were waiting for me, and when I was surrounded, I realized what was going to happen. The Guard hadn't killed the Reachman, I had. That would be the story, anyhow. And likely they would pin Thonar's wife's murder on me as well, and Nepos, but in that case I did at least have something to do with it. In this city there is only one punishment. I am being taken to Sidna Mine, a place that, as I was reminded, no one has ever escaped. I have been learning a lesson about the world these last weeks. Quite simple, in most ways. One that most children spit at the other children when they get in a fight. Mind your own business. Take care of yourself. No one else will. The Legion cut me loose when I was of no use to them. The people of Windhelm turned their backs on me because I tried to make things better, and that was inconvenient for them. Now here in Markarth, the same thing. Even the priests seem to care only for themselves, not for mortals in general, as they are supposed to. Nowhere is this more evident than here, in the mine. Nobody talks to each other unless they must. Everyone protects what little they have with what few weapons they can make or scavenge. Looking at them, though, I can see something else, something that the Gnolls above us might one day regret. It is a similar situation as the one during the war, Fort Karstav. They put all their enemies in a single place, and now a new element is introduced. Me. Escape is supposed to be impossible. Give me a few hours. If a writer of books wished to truly indulge in the concept of irony, then this is the place for them to start. Attend as I relay the story of the Forsworn in, admittedly, simplistic terms. The Forsworn ruled their land, the Nords conquered their land, the Nords told the Forsworn that they could no longer worship their gods, the Forsworn rebelled. Sound familiar? To the followers of Ulfric Stormcloak, it should. Let me tell it again. The Nords ruled their land, the Aldmiri conquered their land, the Aldmiri told the Nords that they could no longer worship their god. The Nords, the Stormcloaks, rebelled. The story is almost identical, though in one the Nords are the evil, and in the other, the victim. I can sympathize with the Forsworn in their aims. On the other hand, as part of a group that put down the Stormcloak Rebellion, I can also see the other side of it. Though in my case, putting them down was the first step towards taking on the true enemy of that story, the Dominion. Regardless, none of that helps me escape. Except that Madanak thinks to recruit me to his cause, I think. There is an air of intensity about him. Something that makes me think that something drastic is about to change in Markarth. And perhaps I can be part of that, if it gets my freedom back. 6 Frostfall, 4th Era, 201. The story has another similarity. Both involved Ulfric Stormcloak. In Markarth's case, he was the Empire coming in to put down the rebellion, the position I held when the Empire came in. So who then is Ulfric's stand-in here? Not Madanak, but Thonar. I have deposed one power-mad man, and I think I'll soon have a chance to repeat my performance. I was sent to remove the one person in the mine who had not sworn to the Forsworn, as a test of loyalty, to be sure I wouldn't put a shiv into Madanak's back the first chance I got. As I moved through the tunnels, something occurred to me, something that the Nords above should have realized long ago. The mine. It has always been thought of as unescapable. It is a cave with only a single entrance, after all, easily defendable, easy to close up, easy to control. Then, they gave digging tools to the inmates. How could they believe that the inmates would not use those tools to dig a way out? It might take years, decades, generations. But eventually it would happen. And I think Madanak has already done it. I think he's going to actually escape this mine. If I want to go with them, then a payment is required. Grisvar, the unlucky prisoner in Sidna Mine, is dead, so that I may live. Madanak called everyone together in the wake of my killing. They all knew what it meant. Grisvar would not have been killed unless he was no longer useful. Indeed, we were leaving, through a tunnel dug just next to Madanak's rooms, straight into a Dwemer ruin, which led straight into Markarth itself. I lingered behind, bringing up the rear of the group as they all dashed for the surface and freedom. If there was to be a fight, and I knew there would be, then I had no problem using all of them as additional shields between me and the Markarth Guard. No matter how this turns out, Markarth is about to have a major shake-up in its power dynamic. Several spiders and a couple of Dwemer constructs later, we were at the final door leading into the city. One of Madanak's followers from the outside had managed to get hands on all of my gear and had it returned to me, meaning I'll be going into battle with all the arms and armor I need. Assuming I fight at all. Markarth is going to make this loud and angry, making sure that his name is the one to be blamed for all that has happened here, meaning my own name will be cleared. I might, however, need to shoot a single arrow during the fray. Thonar, if I can get a clean shot. And assuming we run into him during the fight. The departure of the entire population of Sydenham Mine did not, as it turned out, go unnoticed. Thonar was leading the Markarth Guard contingent when we exited into the night sky. There were a few words exchanged, but it didn't take long before it turned to fighting. Thonar, as I expected, ran for his life, leaving the guard to die in his place. I pushed through the crowds of fighting and waited until we were isolated, out of view. Thonar, you believe you understand power. You know nothing of it, not if you expected that the caged saber cat would be content to remain caged. You can never let go, never assume, never think for a moment that if you want to keep what you have, you can allow others to ensure it remains so. Your saber cat escaped your control, and now your power means nothing. I let fly my one arrow. Thonar Silverblood is dead. My one goal in this matter now completed, I allowed the fighting to go as it would. The Forsworn cut a bloody path through the streets, one of them even in a twist that made me smile, raising the corpse of Thonar to fight for them. Ironic and simply delicious. With the corpse now a pile of ashes, there is no way to prove how he died, and with Markarth's escape now a matter of public knowledge, my name is cleared of everything that has happened here in the last 2 days. The guard are disorganized, unsure how to do their jobs without Thonar giving them their directions and orders, so though they gave me sideways looks, they said nothing more. Markarth is going to be very disorganized for the next several weeks, but in the end, I believe it will likely be for the better. Not that I will care. They won't know that I was the catalyst for the changes, not this time. It didn't work out for me at all in Windhelm, and I doubt it will here either. Instead, I went to sleep. I haven't gotten a lot lately. And then, maybe, find out where the goods that the caravan the Forsworn attacked are most likely to be kept. Despite my need for sleep, I couldn't rest. Not on a stone bed. Not in a city that had done its level best to kill me for asking questions. I hope not to be forced back here for quite some time. Sometime around the end of the universe sounds about right. Lydia was in the common of the Silverblood Inn, and after making sure that I was in one piece, scolded me for everything I had done that got me arrested, even though it was, none of it, my fault. I let her. I was too tired to care. I'll correct her mistaken impressions later. Lydia had, however, already gotten the information we needed to find what Aryan had sent us for. The most likely place is a small Forsworn camp on a rise just over where the ambush occurred. She had it marked on a map, which meant it was time to leave this place and get back to what I hope will be my new source of employment. The camp we had been directed to wasn't hard to find. Neither were its inhabitants hard to deal with. I'm getting far better with the bow, it seems, as the shot I made from at least 100 yards, if not more, seemed almost child's play. That, of course, set off the other two Forsworn, which charged straight at us. One fell to a second arrow, and Lydia cleaned up the remainder. The only item still remaining from the caravan was a jade statue of a warrior. Hopefully this will appease Aryan when I return to Solitude. From here, the next logical place is Silent Moon's camp. Lydia shuddered every time I mentioned the place, and with apparent good reason. This group of bandits is well established, the Whiterun version of the Mistvale bandits. The Whiterun Guard have tried several times to root them out without success, including one attempt she had been present for and barely escaped. Whiterun will be the immediate destination, where we can rest and get more information on the camp. The rain began falling as I neared the Whiterun border, naturally. That of itself I've grown used to. Even rain at dusk, making the surrounding terrain practically pitch black, I have dealt with in the past. The last thing, however, I wanted to deal with announced its presence with a frightful roar as it soared by us, a black shadow against the steel-grey storm sky. We huddled back against the rocks, hoping that the dragon would fly on, would miss us in the darkness. Either it was uninterested, or it did work, as the beast turned toward the east, fading rapidly into the oncoming night. Lydia and I shared a look that spoke volumes without a single word. Neither of us had been looking forward to that fight. We continued on towards Whiterun. The Bannered Mare was still heavily populated when we arrived, and we found Belethor and Isolde sharing a table. I invited myself into their conversation and steered it to the subject that both of them wanted to avoid: Belethor's sister. Isolde flushed a bit as I brought it up, but her manner didn't suggest any deception to me. This sister hadn't been with Isolde long. She'd been passed on to Madran, one of the Khajiit who run caravans across the province. From the way Isolde spoke of the events, it sounds less like slavery, which one would assume being sold entails, and more of an enforced apprenticeship. Isolde taught her what she knew of business, and then passed her to Madran, where she is supposed to learn something about an item called sleeping tree sap. Belethor, for his part, remained silent the entire time. Smartest thing he's ever done, I think. I spent an hour or two speaking with the local guardsmen and a few others, trying to get information on the bandits of Silent Moons. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot to be said. Apart from them still being active and a serious local threat, almost nothing is known about the bandits themselves. The site itself, Silent Moons, is said to have been some kind of temple dedicated to worship of the moons in some fashion, though the cult, or whatever they were, has long since died off. The camp itself, however, is a fortress. Enough of one that the bandits have been all but unassailable since they took to them, using it as a local base to retreat to when they aren't out thieving and robbing on the main roads. Lydia didn't get much else. Only confirmation of what she had told me previously, which means that we will be attempting what most consider impossible: an assault on the camp with only the two of us against an unknown, and likely high, number of bandits.